This is to and about Thunderfoot. Thunderfoot, you are very awesome and skeptical in many ways and approach science and feminism and all these, especially junk science, in a very critical, skeptical way, especially when things seem like junk science and they're not, like those lithium batteries exploding in those, whatever they're called, two-wheel weird things. I've never owned one. But you said the Roman Catholic faith, bad ideas coming and this and that. Christianity, and especially in the ancient church, which was known as Catholic, not the same thing as Roman Catholic, but the Roman Catholic Church would come out of that. There were many other things, like rejection of slavery, absolute equality, if you look at the epistles of Paul, women rising up, being major players in the church, the first 400 years, and an end to blood sport, to games where, you know, gladiatorial games. But you also say, what you don't say, what you do, that's what you didn't say. What you do say is the Roman Catholic Church is based around this idea of, in the Garden of Eden, somebody eating an apple because a talking snake told them to. Nobody believed that to be a literal story, a literal factual event of what's happening. And the early bishops of the church argued against that. Actually, they argued against other heretics who were taking things literally. And they said, imagine if somebody were to take the beginning stories of Genesis as if they were exact accounts of things. And they actually jest about it, because not even the most extreme literalists took that seriously. Not to mention it was considered a Jewish text, right? So, and here are some sources. Basil the Great, Basil of Caesarea, big guy, Basil the Great, who was in the, 3rd or 4th century, I forget the time that he was there. But if you want something earlier, Clement of Alexandria, who wrote around 170, very early. This wasn't a later development. So from the 2nd century to the 4th or 5th century, to the 300s, 400s, it's 4th and 5th century, the church held this belief. These were popular guys. And they were continually read. And at least, from what I know and what I've read, for the next 1,000 years after that, or at least up until 1066, nowhere in the church it was actually rejected, because actually the Jews came up with a 6,000-year-old earth and a literal reading of the New Testament and Lilith and all that, and it was actually combated later on when these things were accepted by the rabbis and taught. This was a foolish thing about Judaism. The creation of the earth and how things were created, they took a Platonic view. Plato, especially the Roman Catholic Church, the Eastern branch of the church, were trying to stay away from that, but especially the Roman Catholic Church locked on to creation via a Platonic narrative and didn't let it go. That's why the Roman Catholic Church was the first to embrace evolution in the 1920s, and then started an investigation to see if it really should. And the Roman Catholic Church never believed in creationism, never believed in young earth creationism. In fact, it was Lemaitre that came up with black holes, or not black holes, the Big Bang Theory. And it was the atheists that up until, you may not know this, up until the WMS satellite was launched and came out with that data in 2002, atheists in the 90s and 80s and 70s were arguing for an infinite universe, because the Big Bang implies a first cause, and nothing before the Big Bang can be studied because the laws of thermodynamics break down. So we can't say, oh, it's expanding and then it'll contract again, and it'll probably go into a big freeze, the big freeze, not the big crunch, and not the equilibrium, which again implies a beginning cause, effect, and then decay. which it's a philosophical stance of God. That does not mean a theistic God. It does not mean a theistic God. You're very skeptical in everything, which is awesome, but the problem is that you didn't even bother to research this. You assumed you knew something that was common knowledge, just like how Abraham Lincoln was the first president, or the Christopher Columbus came over on the Mayflower and landed at Jamestown, that kind of common knowledge. That's the problem, is that it would be like saying that the earliest people that fought for secularism were atheists. They weren't Christians or deists or Freemasons. I should say, well, there were Catholics that fought for it too, but Protestants. Or something like capitalism. The only problem with that is that people can't express greed in a capitalist system. Things that are patently false and are absolutely known to be false, unless you don't look at it. I mean, you could have taken a couple of minutes to, or even less than a minute, a few seconds, to Google it. And, well, I guess it would take minutes, because there probably is crackpots that are, oh, Catholics believe in creationism. But the literal, no creationism and no literal reading of the Old Testament, and that's not some modern day forcing it on the past. Again, Clement of Alexandria, writing in 170, and Basil the Great. These were two prolific writers, especially Basil. They were read by the church to this day, but especially in the late Roman period, Dark Ages, and early, middle, and late medieval period. Peace to you. It would be great if you corrected your video, or even put an annotation there, to be consistent with your truth and skepticism, because I love your videos, and there are actually many Calvinists, Roman Catholics, Eastern Orthodox, Lutherans, and Anglicans that love your channel. But this is, I have to say something, because you're wrong on this, and I want you to be right on everything, and I love your debate with Ray Comfort. You do a great job crushing creationism.